Merkabah Mysticism. According to Gershom Scholem, a leading scholar of Kabbalah, it is in the apocalyptic literature of the Essenes that can be found the earliest evidence of Merkabah mysticism, or what he termed Jewish Gnosticism. 54 The main interests of Merkabah literature are accounts of mystical ascents into heaven, divine visions, and the summoning and control of angels, usually for the purpose of gaining insight into Torah. The locus clas sikus for these practices are the biblical accounts of the chariot vision of Ezekiel and the temple vision of Isaiah. Merkabah involved a complex tradition of visionary architecture, which meditated on the vision of the book of Ezekiel. The aim of Merkabah mysticism was to achieve visions of otherwise invisible mathematical linguistic concepts, in the form of chariots, thrones, palaces, and ultimately, the temple itself. The book of Ezekiel opens with a vision of God on his chariot supported by 4 cherubim, a variation of the sun chariots of Marduk, Shamash, Apollo, or Phaethon drawn by 4 horses. The cherubim are described as each having 2 sets of wings, the body of a man, but the legs and cloven feet of a goat. Each had 4 heads. While not referred to explicitly in the Bible, these heads can be identified with the 4 seasons of the zodiac and their related signs, demonstrating to what degree astrological influences had already corrupted the Bible by that time. Each creature has the head of a man representing Aquarius, an eagle for Scorpio, a bull for Taurus, and a lion for Leo. Each creature also stands on a wheel inside a wheel, representing the intersection of the ecliptic, resulting from the orbit of the Earth around the Sun, and the celestial equator, resulting from the rotation of the Earth on its own axis. Merkabah texts involved elaborate anthropomorphic descriptions of God, known as Shi'ur Komah, which were based on the Song of Solomon, the most important of all Kabbalistic texts. The Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs, is a collection of love poems spoken alternately by a man and a woman, symbolizing the mystical erotic relationship between the god and goddess. In the song, the beloved, or the Shekinah, is described as bride, daughter, and sister. Originally, she was the planet Venus, the goddess of love and war of antiquity. She also represents the darker aspect of the god, as did Moloch or Saturn in ancient times. She says of herself, "I am black, but I am beautiful." 55 According to the Song of Solomon, 6:10. Who is this arising like the dawn? Fair as the moon. Resplendent as the sun. Terrible as an army with banners. It had been argued that while Gnosticism derived from Jewish mysticism, unlike its Christian counterpart, Jewish Gnosticism did not worship an evil god in the place of God. However, as Alan Siegel has shown in 2 Powers in Heaven, it was Metatron who was worshipped as the replacement. After he ascended to heaven, Enoch was known in Jewish Apocrypha as the Archangel Metatron. In Hermeticism, Enoch was also identified with Hermes. He later came to be regarded as the archetypal man, or the primordial Adam, who was equated with the biblical figure of Melchizedek, or the angel Metatron, becoming the source of the Kabbalah's anthropomorphic doctrine, by being interpreted as the image of God. The idea of Metatron was developed in the Babylonian Talmud to explain Exodus 24:1, where God refers to himself as Lord in the 3rd person rather than in the 1st person as me. The rabbis of the Talmud explain that this Lord is Metatron, whose name is like his master's name, because his name is in him. Though, the rabbis also warn not to confuse Metatron with God. However, the myth takes on further features in the later strata of the Zohar, where Metatron and the demon king Samael are combined into one figure, and is therefore seen as embodying both good and evil. 56 Archetypal man, or Adam Kadmon, was also identified with the Tree of Life, which through the influence of the Decade of Plato and Neoplatonism was later equated with what were called the 10 Sephiroth, or divine emanations. 57. Like the ancient Asherah pillars, this god was also depicted as a phallus, representing the pillar or axis of the world, entwined by a serpent known as Teli, representing the constellation Draco, which circles around the celestial pole. Teli is described in the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Creation, written by an unknown author, probably in Palestine between 200 and 600 AD, which mingled Jewish, Pythagorean, and Hellenistic ideas. 58. The dragon Teli is the sacred serpent, who, according to the Zohar, corresponding to the evil serpent, watches over humanity and restrains the power of the impure serpent. 59. Teli is the Leviathan of the Bible, the constellation Draco, which governs the world and personifies the axis, or phallic pillar, or Asherah poles, symbolized by the tree of knowledge in the Yetzirah, around which it coils. Through the influence of Merkabah, the system held in common by all the Hellenistic mystery schools came to be the notion of the passage of an initiate through the stages of the 7 known planets, to remove the stains acquired on his soul during its descent into a human body. In order to ascend through the celestial spheres, the initiate had to master techniques of meditation, which included concentrating on the Hebrew scriptures, gematria, as well as breath control, chanted hymns, and certain body movements. In order to bypass the hostile gatekeepers of each sphere, the initiate had to display his seal or amulets, composed of complex geometric designs that contained magical powers. In the opinion of Skolem, such a mode of ascent, through which the soul ascends to its original home, either after death or in a state of ecstasy, is certainly very old. However, there is no evidence of the notion of an ascent through 7 heavens prior to end of the 1st century AD, when it was probably invented, perhaps by Rabbi Akiva, the principal figure of early Merkabah mysticism. On Rabbi Akiva, the Talmud noted that among 4 men who engaged in such mystical subjects, 1 died, 1 went mad, 1 apostatized, and only Rabbi Akiva had a true visionary experience. Of the oldest literary sources of Merkabah are 2 Hikhalith texts, the lesser attributed to Rabbi Akiva, and the greater, to his colleague, Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha. As Skolem remarked, similar dangers in the ascent of the mystic are described in the Liturgy of Mitras, of the magical papyrus of Paris, where the description of the ascent shows many parallels with the account given in the greater Hikhalith. 60.